The spring training woes continue for the Chicago White Sox, but there was a glimpse into a glorious future in yesterday's defeat that I want to discuss on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the Sox lost to the Padres 3-1 yesterday, but there was a glimmer of hope in that defeat when young hurlers Sean Burke, Noah Schultz, and Hagen Smith all pitched and looked good doing it. Could that be the future 1-2-3 punch that the Sox ride back to being competitive? I'll discuss that in the first segment. Then, speaking of pitching, I want to discuss James Fegan's piece in SoxMachine.com that goes over how the team is trying to be creative to get outs this season with Garrett Crochet's strikeouts gone. And finally, I'll discuss the flaw in that strategy and how that was on display in yesterday's defeat. Okay, so I basically just want to shout out bingo after the Sox lost 3-1 to the San Diego Padres because 5 straight losses to open up spring training play has pretty much hit on every, greatest hits notes from the Sox losses in 2024. I mean, basically, we're just seeing the White Sox already being in midseason form. You're almost getting that deja vu feeling. This defeat came with the offense once again not mustering much. Just 2 hits. 2 hits. And 2 walks. But hey, Mike Tauchman went yard, so good to see the Palatine Pounder hit some home runs there. But what really hits the figurative bingo card is the Sox had this one tied 1-1 heading into the 8th. And, well, you guessed it, a bullpen arm could not keep it tied. Danny Altavilla gave up a solo shot to Forrest Wall. Padres had another run in the 9th. And, hey, it's what we're all used to seeing. I'll also discuss the horrendous defense that was on display. That was part of the, where you'd want to be like, this is definitely on my White Sox losing bingo card, figuratively speaking. I'll discuss that in the final segment, but for the most part, this club could be, what you saw yesterday, what you've seen the last 5 games. And yes, I know it's spring training and they don't count, but what you've seen in the last 5 games, you pretty much could say this is what I saw all last season. Except for, and actually it would be the same, because the starter wasn't the problem. Although this was technically starter by committee as Sean Burke got the first 2 innings and then Bryce Wilson got the next 2. But what the main takeaway, though, where we deviate from same old White Sox, was watching Burke impress, and then top pitching prospects Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, they pitched clean innings. You really got a glimpse into the potential of a 1-2-3 starting pitching rotation punch that could bring the better days. Again, we've got the potential of Justin Ishbia buying the White Sox from Jerry Reinsdorf as that literally, as a figurative ray of light through our dark clouds. And now we've got 3 young stud pitchers showing their potential. Another ray of light there. And then you add in Jonathan Cannon, Davis Martin, Drew Thorpe, all having the potential to be very good starting pitchers. Maybe Martin and Cannon more 3-4 guys. Thorpe obviously does, even though he doesn't have the velocity, does have, the spin stuff to potentially be an ace like Aaron Nola, as everydayers keep hearing me point out. Hopefully the elbow surgery that he had to shave down that bone spur gets that fastball up to 93, 94 to really set up the devastating changeup. Because that's, I think it was John Eli is the name again. He was the Birmingham Barons pitching coach. I remember I was listening to him on a podcast saying that, if Thorpe could get back to, some of the reports of hitting 93, 94 on the gun, that would really set up his changeup a lot better than the 90, 91, and just that, a couple ticks in velocity can really make that, changeup look even that more deceptive. Because again, his fastball just doesn't have much movement on it. It's basically a straight, if it's straight 91 and he's missing, then he's getting hit. And we saw that last year. But if he's hitting on his locations, then he's got the chance to set up that devastating changeup. On the flip side, too, if you give it just a couple tick more velocity, then he might have a still potential of maybe getting some bats to miss in case he misses. But anyways, let's also not forget Grant Taylor has electric stuff too, and he's coming up behind Schultz and Smith. So In terms of the pit, how the Sox are going to get back to being competitive, it is in the rotation. And I'll discuss another reason why in the second segment. But you did get that glimpse into, wow, the White Sox could ride this pitching into being a better team someday. Because Burke was outstanding, although he needed 40 pitches because Miguel Vargas could not back him up. And again, I'll discuss that in the final segment. But as Thomas Nescio of TJ Stats pointed out on X, and this is at TJ Stats, for those watching on YouTube, you'll see the graphic, but basically says Sean Burke made the spring training debut. Burke is a popular breakout pick this season, and he showed off why today. His stuff is great, and also a new sinker, basically is what he wrote. And then you can see the graphs about it. He was just pounding the strike zone with all his pitches. I mean, really getting, in there. And then if he added a sinker, that's going to make him even more devastating. And he is expected to be one of the rookies to make an impact this season. And again, he showed why. I know it's 2 outings, but good outing, allowed a hit. The run he gave up was not earned. Walked 1 batter, struck out 2. And in terms of making the rotation, the Chicago Sun-Times beat reporter Daryl Van Schouwen, he reported Burke does feel confident he's going to make the opening day rotation. He shared this quote from Will Venable, who did confirm to the press yesterday that Martin Perez, Jonathan Cannon, Davis Martin, obviously they're in the rotation. No shocker there. But when it comes to the final 2 spots, he said this, quote, "We're still evaluating all these guys, but Burke's going to be a guy that we're going to lean on. He's going to be a big part of this," end quote. So honestly, yeah, I mean, should we get too excited over 2 innings? Yeah, I wouldn't say too much, but again, if you're 0-5 and you're just looking this terrible to start spring training, you're just going to grasp at any straw you can. And honestly, when I was watching Burke pitch yesterday, I wouldn't rule him out being a dark horse candidate to start opening day. Yes, I know he's only made 3 career starts and has 4 appearances, but hey, no one thought Garrett Crochet would get the nod after Dylan Cease was traded, and look what happened. And Burke's already hitting 97 in-game action, according to Van Schouwen. So they do need some higher velocity guys in the rotation. Burke is also Keith Law's number 9 ranked rookie to potentially make a big impact, although Wet Blanket Law here had to point out Burke's injury history, saying, oh, you should get what you can, right? As soon as you can, because he's probably going to get hurt. Well, hey, Garrett Crochet had an injury history too, but you can shed it, okay? So I think Burke was pretty much healthy this last season. The reason why he tumbled down was, yes, he had some injuries early on, but maybe he's put that past him. And then after Bryce Wilson also pitched 2 clean innings. And side note, Steve Stone on the TV broadcast was making it sound like Wilson is going to be more of a swing role, like he was with the Brewers, especially once Thorpe is ready to join the rotation, because he's, still recovering from that setback in his elbow surgery. I have a feeling Thorpe's going to start the season on the 15-day IL. Because remember, pitchers, it's 15 days. Just because he is a little bit behind. He's probably 2 or 3. Where everybody's at, he's probably 2 weeks behind with that setback from elbow surgery. But we did get Noah Schultz on the mound. First off, when I did see him pitch, because I have the MLB.TV package, and I did remember, it's Saturday, I should actually turn on a Barons game. Not many hitters could even see his, touch his stuff. Just not, they just couldn't touch him. And if they did, it was usually they were just fouling it off. Obviously, a little bit step more up in competition. That did change as all 3 of his outs came via the Babbitt variety. The ball was put in play. Should have actually not have been charged with a hit as Vargas. Well, I'll discuss in the 3rd segment, but that was not a hit. That was an error. But Jacob Amaya does get the double play turned on the next batter that Schultz faced. Nice play too. After Schultz induces basically the ground ball. It was a hot shot liner though. Amaya makes a great play, turns 2, and then Schultz gets the fly ball out. 8 pitches. That's all he threw. 8 pitches. 6 went for strikes. 98.4 on a sinker. That guy is going to be scary. Also, it's kind of neat. to see CHSN's new sideline reporter, Brooke Fletcher. She was talking with Noah's dad during the double play. So his dad actually got to do the play-by-play of the double, of Amaya turning 2. That was kind of cool. That was really neat to see his dad call that, and you could see his dad was very nervous. Brooke even was very good at informing the audience that, normally Noah's dad is pacing, and you could tell, he did not want to be in the seat. He was very nervous to see his son pitch. Also, I guess Noah was battling a cold. His dad revealed that he was, he woke up with a fever, but he's like, I am going to pitch today. It's my day to pitch in a spring training game, and we don't know how many more games Schultz is going to pitch in Major League camp, because obviously he's destined to go to minor league, and I'll get to that in a second. But Hagen Smith follows him up in the next inning, gives up a single to Forrest Wall, also walked old friend Gavin Sheets with 1 out, but still gets out of the inning with 3 strikeouts, including 2 of the against the Padres' best prospects, Ethan Salas and Leodonis DeVries. Hopefully I pronounced that name right. And it is neat to hear about Schultz and Smith building a bond, since they're both 21. And Schultz described it like this to MLB beat reporter Scott Merkin. I've got the tweet up for those watching on YouTube, at Scott Merkin. Noah Schultz on his bond with Hagen Smith. Quote, it's pretty awesome being with him, so close in age and everything. I don't have a brother. I have 2 sisters, but at least for the season, it's the closest thing I have to that, end quote. So you get a feeling that I think Smith may, though, start the year at single A, high A, Winston-Salem like he did. But it wouldn't surprise me if both are in double A Birmingham, pitching at least through half the season. And again, the goal is they're probably going to go to the minors. They're going to build up their stamina to handle a full MLB season workload, at least over 100 innings. Because remember, Schultz, and I think the Sox have paved the way on how they're going to develop their pitchers, their prize pitchers, or at least they should, especially if they're high schoolers. Schultz only pitched on Saturdays 4 innings. So now the next step in his development is pitching every 5 days and pitching, into the 5th, into the 6th inning. But you're going to need those brother in arms, pun intended, to grow up together to help this club obviously get back to even just being a decent baseball team. And at least for one day, all 3 of these potential young studs show that they could potentially bring better days to us White Sox fans. And let's hope, they do that, obviously giving us, these great moments. But obviously, in 3 separate instances, you don't really, the only time you ever want to see Sean Burke, Noah Schultz, and Hagen Smith pitching in a game is like, say, Game 7 of the World Series. Well, speaking of pitching, the Sox will likely not get the strikeouts Schultz and Smith can provide this season, as again, they're going down to the minors. They're going to build up their stamina. They're going to still refine some of their pitches, then come up, hopefully be aces. SoxMachine.com's then James Fegan dived into how the Sox plan on getting outs then with a pitching staff that's not going to be heavy on swing and miss stuff. And I want to go over that next on Locked On White Sox. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. So I know I touched on James Fegan's work on SoxMachine.com, going over how the starting rotation and the bullpen is going to need to use basically weak contact to get outs, since there is going to be a severe strikeout shortage in the starting rotation and potentially in the bullpen. But I kind of just glanced on it, and I really want to dive into it. And the reason why I want to dive into it is basically, yes, I was frustrated reading that it's basically because of economics, the reason why the Sox are, diving into this strategy. Because strikeout pitchers are getting more expensive these days. And when the budget says you can only spend $5 million, you're getting Martin Perez. Martin Perez is more of a Babbitt guy, induce weak contact, get those outs that way. That's again why I said the team should have never have paid Andrew Vaughn close to $6 million. They shouldn't have tendered that contract, because you could have taken that nearly $6 million allotted to him. And then it turns out there was $5 million in the budget for a starting pitcher. That's $11 million. Maybe you could have gone out and gotten Jose Quintana back. And then you cover first base with Miguel Vargas. And I'll discuss again why he should be at first base, because his defense was terrible. I'll discuss that in the final segment. And also, again, I'll discuss in the final segment how that is going to ruin this weak contact strategy, at least at third base. But the one takeaway I have from James's write-up is, man, Justin Ishbia cannot buy out Jerry Reinsdorf soon enough, because having to rely on this weak contact and funky deliveries, and deception, as James describes, is how the Sox are going to bridge the gap in not getting many whiffs. They're just not spending the money. They just are not going out into free agency. They didn't do that. Or they didn't extend a pitcher who had over 200 strikeouts, so they had to trade him. And in one ways, like I said, I understand the logic of trading Garrett Crochet because you did need to replenish your farm system. But the main reason why they traded Garrett Crochet, economics. They were not going to extend him past 2027 when he was last year of club control. Timelines just didn't match up, folks. And it also got me thinking, man, no wonder why GM Chris Getz kept touting Brian Bannister this offseason, because they're counting on the director of pitching and his pitching philosophies and his guru ability to make this plan work. I don't want to share a ton, as this is behind the SoxMachine.com paywall, and they do great work, so I don't want to totally spoil it. Plus, $5 a month is worth supporting the work they do. I highly suggest a subscription because James Fegan, Jim Margulis, and Josh Nelson, they do the Lord's work when it comes to covering the White Sox. They're great writers. James has been on the show. Josh has been on the show. I don't know why James and Jim don't return my emails. I've tried to effort them. I love to talk baseball with them. I think they're great. But I do want to highlight what is in the free preview part, because it's going to definitely make you continue to not like Jerry Reinsdorf. It'll also make you think the Sox then should be drafting a starting pitcher like Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith with every first pick, as long as Jerry owns the team. I know they could use more hitting prospects, but again, as long as Jerry owns the team, the price of getting strikeouts is only going to go up until the labor issue of 2027 comes to a head. And even then, if Jerry's still the owner, I doubt he's going to be paying pitchers, even when the CBA favors the owners, if the CBA favors the owners. Although on the flip side, I just want to be fair. There's nothing wrong with thinking outside the box. As again, this is modern baseball, folks. Thinking outside the box is a necessity to thrive in this modern game. You got to keep finding new and creative ways to get outs and then react back. So there's nothing wrong with being forward thinking. But again, in principle, this is all being, moved forward because of economics. So here's the excerpts I want to share. This is the quote. Quote, "The cost of pitching this offseason, it's skyrocketed as far as the guys that have the high K percentages," end quote, said White Sox senior advisor to pitching Brian Bannister. With Martin Perez's one-year $5 million deal with $1.5 million deferred via 2026 mutual buyout option, marking the team's largest free agent outlay of the winter, such a summary offers enough to know that the White Sox budget shut them out from adding much swing and miss stuff to their pitching staff. They were 22nd in the league in strikeout rate as a staff last year, and that was with Garrett Crochet striking out over 35% of the hitters across his 146 innings. The resulting whiff deficit mandates Sox pitching find a different way to live to have any measure of success, produce a healthy mix of multi-year contributors and trade assets, and heck, maybe win some ball games. The plan is to rely on weak contact and weird arm angles. Quote, the interesting thing we found over the last year plus is that the type of arm action and the delivery that scouts brought in the organization are actually really good seam effects type of pitchers, Bannister said. Ironically, you're going after more of a verti riding fastball, but as we've gotten to know these guys and gotten them in the lab and started to work with them, a lot of them have really outlier characteristics on getting late movement on the ball. So while it's a little more contact heavy, there's a lot of damage suppression in there just because they're getting a lot of late movement. The seam effects some of these guys can generate are pretty extreme. You're not going to see the higher K percentages, but I don't think as these guys get in the zone more, the things we prioritize on the analytical side, and have really stepped up our game as an organization in a lot of regards. We're finding these pitchers can really pound the zone, generate that late movement, have arsenals that move late in contrast. There's some really talented arms there that are almost being developed in a different version than why they were acquired, end quote. And then obviously, if you want to get into all the neat nuances Bannister is doing with all these arms in the system, get the subscription. Highly recommend it. But man, that is a lot of mental gymnastics the Sox are doing just to get out, just to get outs for the sake of dollars. This, for the sake of saving money. And obviously, it sounds like the White Sox lost a ton of money last year. And they're definitely going to lose a ton of money this year. The CHSN, rollout has been abysmal. You're not on Comcast, so you're not getting a lot of that, carrier fees that Jerry, loves. Basically the RSN thrift is dead, and they're only on DirecTV, so there obviously is going to be some money funneling in, but it's nowhere near what they were getting in the past. People are not going out to watch this terrible team. I mean, I think people, I still think they'll draw 1.8. You'd be like, oh, they're going to draw 1.8. It's one of the best restaurants in Chicago, actually. They have some of the best food. They do have, for example, they've got a great deal for that ballpark pass for opening day, April, May. What is it, like $200? That's a great value. You can come and go as you please. You're guaranteed a ticket. For a full value, you've already sunk the cost. You could go for a few innings, especially if you live in the area. Get some good food. Actually watch professional baseball. The other team's a professional baseball team. But again, there's still not going to be a ton of money. So I get that, but still, come on. You just had your fan base endure a historic losing season. That's why I was, I have hammered the White Sox for being just, especially Jerry, for just being a little bit too frugal. Okay. I get that this was not the offseason to spend, but come on, you could have squeezed a few more bucks out of that wallet to get maybe a strikeout pitcher. And obviously, there's still nothing wrong with trying to be new age, new school, and finding a new advantage and new way to attack hitters. Because that is one of the reasons why you bring in a guy like Brian Bannister, and then you bring him to be in charge of the entire pitching, not just your starting pitching staff at the major league level. But again, this is being necessitated because of financials, and the financials because the owner doesn't pay pitchers because he's terrified that they're going to blow out their arms, which that's the risk, Jerry. That's baseball. You could have went out and maybe got a guy like Jose Quintana. But nope, there's just too much risk of pitchers getting hurt. And Jerry hates people, paying people to do nothing. Why do you think we got Pedro Grafal all the way through August? He at least had to squeeze a few more months out of Pedro's contract before he was finally yeah, let's get this guy out of here. So that is why when I read the whole article, I was like, man, the White Sox are doing this like when they had to do rent-a-player strategy in the 1970s just to have a chance to be successful. Not because they're trying to be the newest and the smartest and the creative thinker on the block. But the plan to get weak contact has one major flaw, and it was on display in yesterday's spring training game. Let's discuss how this pitching plan will have its struggle, not because of the pitchers during most games, but because the defense backing them up. And I'll discuss that after the break. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days. My wife and I were trying to eat more heart healthy, and I was munching on some recently. Told my wife to give these babies a try. She loved them. I like the roasted salted flavor since it has a perfect blend of roasted and salted, so you don't feel thirsty after after eating a handful. Walked the grocery store though yesterday, and I was like, you know what? They got honey roasted. So I'm gonna try these honey roasted babies out. Definitely know that they make sure that they, again, not a ton of salt where you're like, I have got to drink a gallon of water after that. Just the perfect blend of flavor, in my opinion. It's a great quick snack too, and with the no-shell options, I don't have to clean them up around my desk. But again, if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options, they're a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. Get snacking, get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, or wherever they get their podcasts. This show's available on all major podcast platforms and also on all places on like Apple or Spotify. Let's leave a 5-star review. Rating is at 4.5. Let's get that rating back up. I feel like I'm doing the best job I can. I'm here every day, at least Monday through Friday. Hey, I need to take my weekends off. Here to talk baseball with you, even though it's a one-sided conversation, but feel free to leave comments on the YouTube page, and you can always email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. I do respond. Hey, we could be email pals. It's that type of stuff. Well, anyways, the White Sox committed 4 errors yesterday. Corey Lee, he had basically the clown show moment when Jake Cronenworth hits a line drive, and he hit it right off of Bryce Wilson. That was a little scary, because if Wilson would have went down, you would have lost a valuable arm, whether it's a fifth starter until Thorpe gets back, or it's in the bullpen. But anyways, Wilson's fine. But Lee he should have ate the ball. Just hold on to the ball. But nope. Makes that bad angle throw. Goes into the outfield. And Cronenworth gets to second. Thankfully, Wilson was able to get the next 3 outs. However, the margin for error is going to be basically nothing. There is no margin for error for the White Sox this season. And in the previous segment that I outlined, weak contact is going to be the key to be getting outs. So that means the defense has to be airtight for that plan to work, for the Sox to even have a shot at these projected 60 wins. But Miguel Vargas making a terrible error in the second inning, that allowed a run to score. And that's a case in point why this plan may not work. Yes, the Sox outfield defense should be able to catch whatever gets put in the air to them, as long as it's not hit to left field, because Andrew Benintendi's defense is still very suspect. He doesn't get the best jump on the balls, and he has a terrible arm. But anything hit the center, as long as Luis Robert Jr. is healthy, should be caught. If it goes to right, Mike Tauchman and Austin Slater, they're also good defenders. And you've got Michael A. Taylor backing up all 3, and he catches everything. So obviously, yes, in the outfield, things should be caught if it's catchable, obviously. But if you're aiming for weak contact, you're usually trying to get ground balls. You're not trying to put the ball in the air, because again, there's the if the ball is lifted, there is the chance that it does get hit hard. Usually when you're lifting the ball, you're trying to swing as hard as you can. You're trying to induce that weak contact, especially with the late movement. You're trying to miss the barrel. You're trying to basically induce a ground ball. And they only got Josh Rojas right now that you can say, hey, he's got a good glove. Otherwise, Vargas, again, rough day in the field. And this is making a mountain out of a molehill, because he was a -1 defensive run saved their last season and a -2 outs above average. You can't have any of these guys being in the minuses in those 2 critical defensive stats. You need good gloves to make weak contact work, to give you a shot to at least be a decent team, regardless of talent. Because again, these are some of the strategies that you implement to overcome a lack of talent. And especially if the White Sox offense that you and I are seeing could be a preview of things to come, you're going to need elite defense to overcome a team that's that struggles to score runs, and that has to keep runs to a minimum just to give them a shot to even be in a game. So they cannot afford to have these, giving teams extra outs or allowing runners to move into scoring position because of self-infliction. So that's, again, why I would love to see a director of fielding, like they have, done with a director of hitting and a director of pitching. Get now a director of fielding. Get someone who can teach defense, like Ron Washington, because yes, I get that case should be coming once Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith arrive at the big leagues next season and live up to their immense potential, but you would still like a great defense backing them up. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout spring training. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back tomorrow to go over Keith Law's list of rookies who could make an impact. That mentions a couple of more Sox rookies outside of Sean Burke. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding getting a nice look into the future rotation of Sean Burke, Noah Schultz, and Hagen Smith with their appearances yesterday. The Sox plan to overcome not having many strikeout pitchers and the fatal flaw with that plan being on display in spring training. And also those that thought, wasn't Courtney Finicum supposed to be on the show today? We're going to reschedule it next week. She had a scheduling conflict. Anyways, you can leave any comments about this stuff on the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at TajDub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.